If you're a woman and you find it somewhat burdensome to be the emotionally mature one in your relationship with men, particularly with partners, then this video is for you. I just finished a dance to polarity conversation with someone who had a really unique upbringing and experience and perspective. So this woman was predominantly in partnership with a woman and then was later in marriage partnership with a man. And so really interesting to have that perspective of difference, having been in partnership with women and partnership with men. And the difference for her was that in partnership with a woman, she felt there was a safety emotionally, that she felt like she could express herself and be held in that, and an acceptance. And with being in partnership with a man, less so, but there was more of a financial stability and a security in that space. And in that, recognize that there is an emotional safety, but not quite the emotional safety that she had when in partnership with a woman, because the difference for her was in being in partnership with a man, she felt less safe at being able to express herself because the man wasn't able to be in control of his emotional well-being. He didn't have the emotional mastery that she needed to feel safe to be able to express herself. And what it brought up was a really interesting conversation of women's role in helping men essentially with being able to deal with and manage their emotions. It seems to be, from our conversation, this person's under the impression that women seem to have adopted the role of being the person that men go to in partnership to get what they need emotionally. And to her, it felt somewhat burdensome that she was doing all of the emotional labor in the dynamic, that it kind of felt like her responsibility to help her partner deal with his emotionality, because he lacked the adeptness to be able to do it and was lacking the support to be able to do it. And there was kind of a reluctance and kind of a reticence, I think that's the word I'm looking for, of just, why do I have to do this? Why does the burden of responsibility fall on me? Why can't he do it? Why can't he deal with his emotionality and do what he needs to do to be able to be masterful of his emotional well-being? And I kind of understand that in a way. I understand both sides, so I'm going to get into it. That, yes, it is not the responsibility of, well, anyone, let alone a woman, to be responsible for a man's or anyone's emotional regularity or well-being. We're sovereign beings and have the capacity to regulate and manage ourselves. And this kind of really where it gets into it. Because there's a difference, this is what I brought up, there's a difference between capacity or capability and ability. Just because we have the capacity, we have the capability of being able to manage our emotions, doesn't necessarily mean we have the ability to do it at this point in time. The analogy that I had for this person was, say a child is learning to tie their shoelaces. They have the capability to learn how to tie their shoelaces, but right now they don't have the ability to do it. And so as a parent, or as a human being, you don't condone and chastise and what's the word I'm looking for? You don't feel burdened. That's not the word I'm looking for, but I'll go with it anyway because the word escapes me. At having the opportunity to teach this individual how to do something they're not capable of doing yet, because they have the capacity. Keep using the word capacity. It's not the word I'm looking for. They do have the capacity, but it's the capability. They have the capability to do the thing. They just don't have the ability yet. And as annoying as it may be, it seems to be, from the conversations that I'm having, that men are falling into the same category. And I think we're generalizing by using the label of men. I'm sure there are a lot of women who have the capability to have mastery of their emotions, but haven't learnt to yet. But it seems to be women are perhaps biologically more adept and have a proclivity towards emotional mastery more so than men. This speaks into I'm going to speak into tantric teachings. In tantric teachings, there are layers of consciousness, and heart-mind layer being one of those layers. It's actually the second, potentially third, depending on where you want to sit. Layer of consciousness. In the teachings, it says that the mental and emotional aspects of consciousness aren't different. They're the same layer of consciousness. It's just that the emotional is the more felt, embodied expression of that layer of consciousness, and the mental is the more analytical, mind, logical component of that layer of consciousness. That they sit on the same layer of consciousness, but they're just different ends of the spectrum. And if we want to ascribe the quality of masculine and feminine, nothing to do with gender, just the quality of masculinity and femininity, the Shiva, the Shakti, then emotionality having a more feminine quality to it, and a mental capacity having a more masculine quality to it. Now, because of the conflation of masculine and feminine and male and female, because women seem to have, from my opinion and from my experience, more of a leaning towards the feminine quality of emotionality, and men have more of a leaning towards the masculine quality of logic and mental acuity. We seem to have conflated the two. We all have the capacity to express and experience the full spectrum of mental, emotional layer of consciousness. It seems to be that women have more of a leaning towards the emotional end of the spectrum. I think just by nature, because women are by design more embodied, in the sense that they have the gift of emotionality with the hormonal cycle that they are subjected to, that they are experiencing, whereas men less so and have more of the mental acuity. Then that's not to say that men can't experience emotions and can't master emotions. It's just that whether biologically or societally, because as we know, men have been discouraged societally from embracing the feminine quality of emotionality, because quite possibly it's seen as female. But embracing the femininity of emotionality doesn't make you less manly. It makes you more whole, makes you more complete. And the same for women. Embracing the masculine quality of intellectual capacity doesn't take away from your womanness. It adds to your sovereignty, your totality of your human expression. It's my belief that just women have more of a natural adeptness at emotionality, and men, it would seem, have more of an adeptness at mental acuity. Now, over the last few decades, perhaps, women have been striving further into the mental realm, and men are, it seems at the moment, being invited into the emotional realm. And I think there's a challenge there, because maybe because of the conflation, but also because perhaps a lack of feeling safe to do so. You know, this desire from women to be in partnership or be around men who have this emotional acuity, this mastery of emotion, for men to be able to be able to be in control of themselves emotionally. It also creates a space of, well, they should be able to do it. Why can't they do it? I can do it. The thing is, though, and this speaks into the teachings, there's a teaching that says everyone is doing the best they can with what they know at any moment. And this got into the differentiation in the conversation that we were having. She was saying, well, I don't want to believe that men aren't capable of doing it. And I would agree. It's not that they're not capable, it's just they lack the ability to, at this point in time of their evolution. And I'm not speaking of men in general, I'm speaking of an individual. If a man is unable to exhibit the emotional acuity that you're wanting from them, it's not that they lack the capability to do it. It's right now they lack the ability. Like the child who hasn't learnt to tie his laces yet. It's not that they lack the capability, it's that they lack the knowledge, the ability to do it yet. And you only know how to do something once you know how to do something. I think because as adults, we have this expectation that someone should be able to do something. When they demonstrate the inability to do it, then there is perhaps a begrudging against them. The thing is, that doesn't create the safe space for them to be able to learn how to do it. Because if they could do it right now, if a man could, and I speak for myself in those moments of challenge, if I could demonstrate the ability to be fully competent, then why would I not do that? It benefits not just me, but the people around me. If I'm not doing it, it's not because I don't want to, it's because in that moment I lack the ability to. It's not that I don't have the potential to, it's that in that moment there's something obscuring it. And this also speaks into the teachings. That's going into a lot of teachings today. It's not that it's something that needs to be learned, it's something that needs to be unlearned. It gets a little complicated, and I speak into the Tantra Tuesdays more into this, but the infinite potential of the divine consciousness, godliness, if you will, resides within everyone. It's just that we necessarily forgot how to do things to be able to inhabit this individual expression of consciousness, our individuality of self. It's then remembering these things. So it's remembering how to competently master emotions and relearning, if you will, undoing the challenges that have inhibited the healthy expression. And this is really what I'm doing with mind yoga, right? It's stuck thoughts are to the mind what tight muscles are to the body. That to create the freedom of expression that is optimal and desirable for healthy expression and navigation through the world, it requires the digestion of the mental emotional knots that are preventing it. So whether that's the trauma that you experienced or the stories and limiting beliefs that you're holding that are preventing it. So for example, if if a man is struggling to trust and feel safe, it may be because they've gone through an experience of being hurt by someone in the past. And that mental, emotional baggage is still residing within that person. And it requires offloading that baggage, massaging out that knot, so that when something occurs that triggers that baggage, it can be worked through it and doesn't exist anymore. And the benefit of doing something like mind yoga is if you yourself, even as a woman, are experiencing challenge around emotionality or around mentality, belief, thought, constructs, it's not because you lack the capability of resolving it. It's that you have been challenged in finding the ability to resolve it. And trying to undo a mental emotional knot by oneself is really tricky, because it's trying to use the mind to overcome the mind. Having a guide to work through all of that, someone to be impartial and reflect back when you're going down a challenging path, and to bring you back into presence and conscious awareness to work through those challenges so that they no longer inhibit, is so useful. And it was kind of really interesting in the conversation to get to the point where this person recognized that, or was starting to recognize that, if it is the gift of the feminine to be able to be more adept at emotionality, then rather than getting annoyed at guys because they lack the ability to, how can you let go of that story and that expectation and be empowered in feminine leadership to encourage men out of their ignorance and into their emotional mastery by letting go of your own stuff? And if your stuff is in the way, then that's the invitation for you to get rid of. If the emotional mastery is there and it's the mental component that's inhibiting, then being able to work with someone to let go of those stories so that that stuff doesn't bother you anymore, so that you can be an inspiration to the masculine and invite them into their sovereign power in a way that feels good for them, and they don't have to feel bad about not being able to do it yet, then that's beneficial. And so there's the combination that I would love to work with you if you recognize that that has been true for you, because then we can get rid of those mental components that are inhibiting you from being the emotional support that you can be to invite the man in your life up to the mental emotional mastery that would allow you to feel safe to be able to fully surrender into your femininity, because you know that he is capable and able to hold his emotional mastery, that he can hold you in his masculinity to allow you to surrender fully into your femininity. And it's the dance between the polarities. It requires the balancing, the playing, the interplay between masculine and feminine internally within the individual, to then be able to pull that out and dance beautifully in partnership. And that's the value of being able to do this mind yoga work, is to be able to empower someone to embody the sovereignty and return to love within themselves, so that they can inspire that and be a beacon to attract that to a man or partner in their own life. So if you are tired of being the one doing all of the emotional work in your partnership, then an invitation to you to reach out, drop me a message or write in the comments, and let's work through your mental emotional knots to return you to a place of empowered love, so that you can be that for the people and men in your life.